What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another video. Must start and avoid quarterbacks and tight ends. I'll be walking through each of these positions and giving my thoughts on who you should be starting and avoiding in week 1. If you want to see my exact rankings as they change right up until lock in week 1, then you can do so at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. But let's start things off with the quarterback position with Watson and Mahomes. And these two are easy. We're going to spend about 10 seconds. I don't care who they're playing. You're starting them every single week. Next, we've got Winston and Lamar Jackson. Now, these two have just epic matchups. Winston gets to play San Fran, who's going to be an improved defense this season, and actually isn't the worst paydown option in DFS, or if you're just super desperate for a streaming defense, there are definitely better options. But if your league just locked up a bunch of them and you can't find anyone, you could go to San Fran on defense. But not because they're going to stop Winston or anything, more because Tampa Bay has a really bad offensive line. So if you want to use San Fran to get maybe 4 or 5 sacks, then you can do that. But with the game total as high as it is, and with the Bucs volume coming mostly through the air, he needs to be started in all formats because his floor is incredibly high and his ceiling is massive this week in a game that I think could shoot out. Then we have Lamar Jackson, who gets to play Miami this week in a game that honestly is going to get ugly right from the first few minutes of the game. The Dolphins had the worst offensive line in the league, and then they traded away their best offensive lineman. They stand no chance at stopping Baltimore's pass rush. The Ravens are going to have amazing field position all day, and the Dolphins can't stop the run. So Lamar has monster upside, not only through his rushing ability, but touchdowns. If they're going to get really good field position a few times in this game, he has 4 and 5 touchdown upside. I know that's crazy to think about, and it's probably not going to happen. We're probably going to see maybe Justice Hill and Mark Ingram both get into the end zone, but if he has 2 or 3 passing touchdowns and a rushing touchdown, that's not a crazy outcome. It can absolutely happen in this one. Next 3, Drew Brees, Carson Wentz, and Wilson. These guys have implied totals of 29.75, 27.5, and 27 points. That's something we look for, quarterbacks on teams with massive implied totals. Brees gets a home matchup with Houston. They have a good defense, but this game is going to be really, really fun to watch. I believe this one is the first Monday night game. Remember, in week 1, there's 2 Monday night football games. I think this is the 7-10 start one, but it's going to be such a good game and absolutely could shoot out, just like the Tampa Bay game. This one right here could push into the 60s, maybe even 70s for total points. And it honestly sets up like a game where Brees is going to throw for 303 touchdowns. Wentz is another quarterback that has massive touchdown upside given how lopsided this game's going to be. They, like the Ravens, should have great field position all day long against Washington. And although a few of these touchdowns could come on the ground, like I said with Lamar, there's definitely a chance that Wentz can account for all 4 or 5 touchdowns. In this one, he's a very safe play. There's going to be something through the air. Lastly, we have Wilson, the Seahawks, with the 5th highest implied total of the week, which is surprising given that, they're not typically a high volume offense. They play at a little bit of a slower pace. So you don't usually see the Seahawks having such a massive total. But the 5th highest implied total and the largest spread, they're favored to win by the most points in week 1. They're going to be able to do whatever they want to do on offense. So while it's possible that this turns into the Carson and Penny show, it's also possible that Wilson runs one in and then throws for 3 more, given that they're probably going to score into the upper 20s to 30. So you're starting the 3 of those players wherever you have them. I'd also start Baker, Newton, and Goff. Now, none of these 3 have just great matchups, but their offenses are good enough to produce even in bad ones. Newton and Goff in particular play each other in a game that definitely could go over if one side takes off early, but you very likely drafted all 3 of these as your top option, and I'm not benching them even if we have a little bit lower expectations than normal. I see these guys more as low-end quarterback ones in week 1, which still means you're starting them. Just temper your expectations, although I want to say Newton and Goff, if one of them gets hot early, this game could shoot out. Now we move into the fringe starts. So we're going to start off with Aaron Rodgers playing in tonight's game. He's Aaron Rodgers, right? So he could throw for 304 touchdowns in any matchup, especially with a fully healthy wide receiver core and a fully healthy Aaron Jones. So I'm starting him if I have them, because it's very unlikely you drafted Aaron Rodgers and then you drafted someone in the first 10 rounds, right? Just don't expect him to go off. We need to temper expectations in week 1 because he's got a road matchup with the Bears. That's just brutal. That's the worst case scenario. So you're starting him, but don't be shocked if he doesn't go off on Thursday night. Dak Prescott is next. I think you are starting him, although it's entirely possible that you drafted him as your 2 to be paired with someone that I already mentioned above. And if that's the case, then I am okay benching him. It's a solid matchup at home against the Giants, and I'm expecting him to be decent, but I don't expect crazy production from him in week 1, especially with Zeke now signed. So you can start him, but he's a lower end 1 to a higher end 2, and I'd start everyone I already mentioned ahead of him. Next is our boy Kyler Murray. Now, he does not have an ideal matchup, so if you drafted him as your 2, then you can wait on him this week. I went over the Cardinals matchup with the Lions in the DFS article I wrote. I go over it again in tomorrow's video, but there are basically 2 outcomes that can happen here. One is what basically everyone wants. The Cardinals finally unleash the air raid, and it works, which forces the Lions to lean more pass heavy, featuring Kerryon Johnson in the receiving game and just peppering Golladay, Jones, and Amendola with targets, which is also very likely to work and would result in one of the highest totals we'll see on the week, if not the highest. That outcome makes everyone in this game a must start, I guess, besides the ancillary receivers on Arizona and Amendola, who actually, to be honest, is a sneaky DFS play this week. But everyone that you would really think about starting would be a great start in that scenario. But what's also possible is the Lions look at this game and they're like, yo, we're going to crush them on the ground. And that's what we want to do. We want to be a run-first team. So they might choose to play slow, to easily drive down the field in 12, 13 plays, score their touchdowns, and just don't give Kyler Murray a chance to beat them. That sort of scenario leads to fewer plays on both sides and really only the running game being viable. So while there's absolutely a chance that Kyler Murray finishes the week off as the quarterback 1 or maybe a top 3 quarterback, there's also a chance he disappoints, and that's why he's more of a high-end 2 to a low-end 1. Although I'll say this, I'm in 3 leagues. I have Kyler Murray in 2 of them and Goff in 1. I'm starting Kyler Murray. The final 2 fringe plays are Phillip Rivers and Matt Ryan. Now, Rivers has a great matchup with the Colts. They have a decent defense, but they force a lot of low ADOT targets, and that's how a massive chunk of the Chargers' offense operates. So Rivers is going to be able to move the ball fairly easily through the air with Allen and Henry and Eckler. My only concern with him is if they happen to score a few on the ground really early in the game, then it's possible the Colts just aren't able to keep up, and it turns into a low volume game with more of the ground game being featured. In that scenario, it's pretty unlikely that the game's close late, and so Rivers doesn't need to catch up, he doesn't need to get yardage, and he doesn't get the touchdowns because they ran it in early. So there is still some risk there, although there's massive upside with Rivers, given that they're pretty heavy favorites, they've got a really nice total, and it's not like we're scared of the Colts defense. But then we have Matt Ryan. Now, this game is another game that could be a potential shootout. I think people are going to look at Falcons and Vikings in a dome and say, whoa, these are 2 offenses that could explode. And they're right, to an extent. The Vikings are a really good defense and they want to be more run heavy. So there's also an outcome in this game where they go run heavy. It works since this is a good matchup for running backs. They score their points, but they don't run as many plays. And then maybe the Falcons struggle a little bit because the Vikings are a good defense. That would definitely lead to a disappointing outcome for Matt Ryan. So I think he's more of a high end 2 because there is that risk. Now we get to the quarterbacks I'd probably avoid playing this week. I wouldn't play Big Ben. He's historically much better at home, and the Patriots are not an easy matchup for quarterbacks. Plus, this is the first time we're going to see the offense with Juju, Moncrief, Washington, so I'd want to wait at least 1 week to just see how things play out. Do they go more run heavy with Connor and with Samuel and just ease back on Big Ben's total pass attempts? I want to wait and see at least 1 week before I go all in on Big Ben, especially in a road game. I'd also stay away from Cousins and Jimmy Garoppolo. Both of them should have some good weeks in weeks that we will target this season, but I want to see how the offenses run before I start taking these quarterbacks. The Vikings, like I just said, are expected to skew more towards the run this season, which could lead to fewer pass attempts than people think from Cousins. With Jimmy G, I mean, let's be honest, he's never thrown for over 300 yards and multiple scores in a game in his career, and he has just one career game with 3 passing touchdowns. So I just want to see him produce before I'm starting him. But the good news with him is there's no way you went into a league with Jimmy G as your only quarterback. So just start the other one. I'd also bench Trubisky. Now, he's had some monster games in his short career, but it's impossible to predict when they're going to happen. And them signing Davis and drafting Montgomery, I just want to see how often do they run the football? How are they different from last season? They could be more explosive. They could score more touchdowns, in which case I'm starting him moving forward. I just want to see it first. I don't think that he's a must start. I don't think he's someone that you want out there on Thursday night being like, yep, that's my guy. I have full confidence in him. Not yet. I want to see it for a week first. I'd also bench Brady if you drafted him. Again, another wait and see. How does the offense look without Gronk? We're expecting them to be very run heavy, still an elite offense, still score a lot of points, but where do those points come from? Because I'm thinking a lot of them are going to come on the ground, and if that's the case, well, let's wait on Brady for a little bit. Another one I wouldn't start is Josh Allen. I expect this to be an explosive offense this season, and there will absolutely be weeks where we are streaming Josh Allen, but it's not week 1 at the Jets. You're basically banking on like 80 or more rushing yards from Allen, which he can absolutely do, but there are better options. The last two I want to talk about are streaming options or maybe quarterback 2 options that you could start, but you're probably not starting in a 1 quarterback league. So it's Stafford and Foles. Stafford, I just talked about, is in that game that has the potential shootout. This game could go nuts with both teams scoring into the 30s. But there's also the other scenario where they go run heavy and Stafford is just irrelevant because they're just crushing them on the ground and there's no need to throw the ball. So he's a solid quarterback 2 play in like a super flex league or something like that. Maybe a streaming option if you're desperate and you just need someone with upside, but probably not someone you need to start in a standard 10 or 12 team league. And then Foles. He's going to need to stick with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And it's not like Kansas City's defense is all that scary. And it's a home game, so they don't have to go to Arrowhead where their defense is typically better. He doesn't have a ton of people to throw to, which is why there's no way I can call him a good start. But in a 2 quarterback lead, there's definitely a chance that he needs to throw the ball a ton late. And he gets to 3 touchdowns and he gets to close to 300 yards. And in that scenario, pretty good start. But to be honest, the 2 guys I want from this offense are Fournette and Dede. So those are the quarterbacks. Let's briefly go over tight ends, although this part is definitely going to be very brief because there's only so many usable tight ends, and you're basically forced to play them in all matchups. But I'll go over it quickly. So you've got Kelsey, Kittle, Ertz, Howard, Henry, Engram, Cook, Vance, and Njoku. Everyone I just listed, at least to start the season, you are starting regardless of matchup. You just throw them in there. They're going to be fine. They're going to be used more than these other tight ends. You just have to. Of that bunch, Kelsey, Kittle, Henry, Engram, and Cook have the best matchups, and they're the ones that I'd feel the most confident in this week. The fringe starters are Delaney Walker, Mark Andrews, Austin Hooper, and TJ Hawkinson. Hawkinson is a rookie, and I just don't want to start a rookie tight end in his first career game. Although, like I've said with this game, there's a chance it shoots out, and Hawkinson is a piece of the offense that could score and could be featured in the red zone. Austin Hooper has a really tough matchup in a game with a very wide range of outcomes, so it's less than ideal, although I know a lot of people who drafted Hooper, it's their only option, so I guess you can still go there, just don't expect a lot. Mark Andrews has a really easy matchup against Miami, and there's going to be a decent amount of scoring opportunity, but they shouldn't need to throw the football, so he's not that great of a start. Then you've got Delaney Walker, who's a fine tight end too, but let's be honest, no one wants a piece of the Titans' passing attack, because where's the upside? I mean, where is the upside when you're a receiver in that offense? Every single other tight end is just a dart throw praying for a touchdown. Like if your guy scores, you're like, that's enough for me. I got my 7+ points. we're good to go. The best options when I'm looking through free agency, I'm looking through rankings, are Ebron, Goddard, Darren Waller, Rudolph, and Eifert in that order. I don't feel good about any of them, but if you are someone who just skipped out on tight end and has just the bottom of the barrel to look at, that's what you're looking at in week 1. But again, you should be jumping for joy if any of them score a touchdown because he got lucky. So those are the must start and avoid quarterbacks and tight ends for week 1. If you want to see my full rankings for all positions, check it out at our website, thefantasyfootballadvice.com. But that's the end of this one. I hope you all did enjoy. If you did, how about hitting that like button? If you're new here, how about subscribing to the channel? But thanks for watching.